Have you ever heard about the dark secrets your boss tried to hide from you? Can you imagine what it would be like to discover a sinister plan hidden right in front of your eyes? This is my story. A terrifying secret my boss kept hidden from me, a plot that could have destroyed my career, and how I stood up to not only protect myself but also destroy it completely. Welcome to Judgy Tales, where we tell real, dramatic, and emotional stories from Reddit and everyday life. Here you'll hear shocking stories about family feuds, unbelievable secrets, toxic workplace situations, and more. We don't just tell stories, we judge and reflect with you on the actions and choices people make under pressure. In today's video, I'm going to tell you about a workplace scandal that I uncovered. A plot that my boss tried to cover up at all costs. A dark plan to bring me and my colleagues down. But what my boss didn't expect was that I saw it all, and I planned a perfect counterattack, making them pay dearly. You'll hear every detail, every tense moment as I discovered the first signs, the feelings of betrayal and anger that grew day by day. I'll take you through every step of my struggle, the difficult decisions, and the plan I built to foil the plot. This isn't just a story of revenge, it's a story of resilience, intelligence, and the power of justice. If you've ever experienced betrayal at work, felt slighted, or played for the wrong, then this is definitely the story for you. Join me in listening, judging, and sharing your opinions. Because at Judgy Tales, there are two sides to every story and everyone deserves to be heard. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on more dramatic, honest videos like this one every week. Together, we'll dive into shocking stories, complicated situations, and hard-won lessons from real life. Now let's begin to uncover the dark secrets my boss tried to keep hidden, and how I made them pay. My name is Alex, and the story I'm about to tell is about one of the most memorable experiences of my career. The experience of finding out that the person you trusted the most has betrayed you in a brutal way. I worked in marketing at a fairly large and reputable technology company. Initially, I was very proud of my job. I had been with the company for almost 5 years, building my career step by step, contributing and hoping for a well-deserved promotion. I thought I had a solid and highly regarded position in the company. My boss, David, was the head of the marketing department. He was considered a visionary and quite decisive leader. Of course, in any company, not everyone can please their boss, and I was no exception. But I always tried my best to do my job well, maintain a positive attitude, and maintain a fairly good working relationship with everyone on the team. However, David was quite ambitious and competitive. He did not like anyone who threatened his position or power, whether it was a subordinate or a superior. And gradually, I noticed that he started to act strangely, not as friendly as before. Meetings started to become more tense. The decisions he made became more and more unusual, and I felt more noticed than before. Not only that, I also noticed that some colleagues in the group started to avoid me or keep their distance, which had never happened before. At times, I even heard rumors and bad stories about me being spread around the company. I did not understand why things changed so quickly. I know that working in a large company always has competition, and sometimes power plays and internal struggles are inevitable. But I didn't expect that my boss, whom I had once considered a mentor, was behind all of this. Another thing that bothered me was that he started to constantly give me difficult projects with extremely short deadlines, while giving better opportunities to other employees who I felt were less deserving. There were even times when I found out that some of the ideas I had brought up in meetings were being taken and presented as someone else's. Things got worse when a new person was brought into the team, someone I didn't know before. They introduced her as the new assistant, but I quickly realized that she was being trained to replace me. And the most painful thing was I wasn't informed or communicated about this. Everything was done very quietly, as if I didn't exist. Gradually, I felt my suspicions growing. I began to observe and collect evidence of what was going on behind the scenes. Through discreet conversations with a few close colleagues, I discovered that David was secretly planning to push me out of the company. He not only intended to replace me with someone new, but also wanted to destroy my reputation and credibility so that no one in the company would dare to defend me or trust me. This really shocked me. I couldn't believe that someone could be so cruel to someone who had devoted his life to the company. But instead of falling apart, I decided to do something. I knew that if I didn't fight back, I would lose everything. Not just my job, but my career, my self-confidence, and my future. During the time that followed, I began to plan step by step how to turn things around. I carefully documented every piece of evidence of David's wrongdoing, from his manipulation of numbers, unfair distribution of work, to the times he talked behind my back and played dirty tricks on me in important meetings. I also began to reconnect with colleagues I had trusted and rebuild strong relationships within the company. I even sought help from other departments and HR, preparing for a long and difficult fight. Not only that, I also carefully studied the company's regulations and policies to know my rights, as well as the weaknesses in the system that I could exploit to protect myself. Every step was carefully calculated, to ensure that I could not only defend myself but also attack back in the most effective way. Although I knew that this path would be thorny and could damage my reputation in the short term, I was determined not to be seen as a loser. I wanted to show David and the people behind the plan that I was not someone who could be replaced or suffocated. All of this formed the foundation for the story I will continue to tell you in the following sections. This is not only a story of a betrayed person and revenge, but also a story of perseverance, intelligence, and the power of fairness in a challenging working environment. If you have ever felt unfairly treated at work, if you have ever suspected that someone is playing dirty tricks on you, or if you simply want to hear a dramatic true story about power struggles at work, then stay with me. This story will make you think and may change the way you view the workplace and the people around you. Things started to change when I noticed unusual signs in the projects I was in charge of. Previously, I was assigned quite a few important projects and was often involved in strategy meetings with other departments in the company. But suddenly, David, my boss, started to lose trust in me. One day, I discovered that a large project that I had spent months researching and planning was suddenly assigned to a new person on the team, without any explanation or notice to me. This made me very surprised and uncomfortable. I contacted David to clarify this, but he only answered vaguely, not giving me a satisfactory explanation. Then I started to notice more strange actions. Documents and ideas that I had presented in meetings were taken away and presented as their own by others. Meanwhile, I was not recognized or given the opportunity to defend my ideas. There were even times when I was excluded from important meetings that I had always been invited to. The feeling of being left out and devalued made me very upset. I wondered, was there something going on behind the scenes that I didn't know about? I started observing and gathering information. A big turning point came when I accidentally overheard a private conversation between David and his new assistant. They talked about the plan to replace me with her and do everything they could to push me out of the company. David also emphasized that it was necessary to make my reputation tarnished so that I would no longer have a place. Hearing those words, I was frozen. The feeling of betrayal, deception mixed with strong anger. I couldn't believe that someone I once trusted could plan such a dirty plan. But instead of letting my emotions control me, I decided to stay calm and find a way to deal with it. From then on, I focused on collecting evidence carefully and systematically. I recorded every call, collected emails, took pictures of documents and conversations related to David's plan. Every day I spent time researching, learning more about the people behind this plan and how they operated. I also began to observe more closely the relationship between David and the members of the department, especially the new assistant. She was not only brought in to replace me, but also showed signs of being especially favored by David. Big projects were gradually transferred to her, while I was left with small, anonymous tasks. At the same time, I also encountered alienation from some of my former close colleagues. Perhaps they were influenced by David's instigation or misinformation, causing them to no longer trust or want to cooperate with me. This made me feel more alone than ever in an already competitive work environment. However, I did not let that discourage me. I began to reconnect with a few more loyal and trusted colleagues. They helped me confirm the facts and shared the information they knew. Gradually, our small group formed to fight this conspiracy. One of the most stressful moments occurred when I was called into the HR office to confront some issues that David accused me of being involved in. He accused me of inefficiency, violating regulations, and having an inappropriate attitude. The accusations were completely false and were designed to undermine me. I had prepared carefully for this meeting, bringing all the evidence to prove the truth. But the feeling of being scrutinized, doubted, and pressured from above almost exhausted me. Still, I stood my ground, clearly and frankly stating what I knew. The meeting ended without any clear decision, but I knew that the situation had become much more dangerous. I felt that David was trying to push me out of the company by any means, regardless of whether it was right or not. Not stopping there, I also discovered a deeper conspiracy. David had colluded with several external partners to weaken the company's position in a major project. He wanted to create a serious mistake that would cause the company to lose the contract, and at the same time damage the reputation of other colleagues, including me. When I discovered this, I was really shocked. This was no longer an internal matter but a betrayal that could cause great damage to the company and many other people. I understood that if I did not act, things would get worse and the people behind it would cause even more serious consequences. From then on, I decided to make a plan to expose this entire conspiracy. I began recording important conversations, carefully collecting evidence, and contacting the legal department and other people in authority within the company. I also prepared myself for possible retaliation from David and those involved. But I knew I could not remain silent and let justice be crushed. The climax of the story was when I decided to release all the evidence to the company's board of directors. This was when the truth was revealed and also when the internal power struggle became more fierce than ever. The reactions from the parties involved were extremely fierce. Some were shocked, some were angry, some were afraid and tried to escape responsibility. But above all, I felt that justice was gradually being served, even though it cost a lot. When I learned the truth about David's plot, I realized that I could not just sit back and wait. If I let him continue to manipulate things, not only my career but also the reputation of the company would be destroyed. I needed a solid plan, a revenge plan not only to protect myself but also to expose the truth and bring justice. First, I understood that directly confronting David in meetings or before the board of directors would not bring the desired results. He could hide his evil deeds, fooling everyone with his polite and powerful appearance. Therefore, I decided to use the attack from afar tactic, carefully collecting evidence, making unexpected moves and catching David off guard. I started by strengthening relationships with some colleagues whom I knew to be honest and trustworthy. They became important links that helped me access information sources, sharing the unusual signs they discovered. Gradually, our small group formed, people who not only wanted to protect me but also wanted to maintain transparency and fairness in the company. Next, I invested time to dig deeper into internal documents, emails, and calls from David with outsiders. I had to find irrefutable evidence that David had colluded with partners to sabotage the company. This required meticulousness and extreme patience, because David was extremely careful about covering his tracks. In addition, I also proactively improved my technology skills, learning how to use recording software, email tracking software, and security tools to secretly collect information. I equipped myself with the most modern weapons to deal with a cunning person like David. One of the important steps in my plan was to create trap situations to make David reveal himself. I started sending him fake information and watched his reactions and how he handled those situations. The signs that he had been tricked into the trap I had set made me both excited and cautious. Meanwhile, I also prepared a backup plan in case things went wrong. I backed up all the data, sent a secret copy to a few close colleagues, to ensure that if the company punished or banned me, the evidence would not be lost. To stay calm and avoid being discovered, I maintained a professional working style, leaving no one suspicious. Every day I showed up on time, completed the task, but inside I was quietly preparing step by step. The contrast between the calm appearance and the seething inner self created constant tension. After weeks of evidence gathering and baiting, I had a complete dossier of recordings, emails, text messages, and internal documents that proved David had committed acts of betrayal and damage to the company. But I knew that to make this public, I needed the right timing and the right professional approach to avoid backlash. So I planned a full-scale attack at the time of the regular meeting with the board of directors. I prepared a detailed presentation, clearly stating each step of the plan and demonstrating irrefutable evidence. I also prepared sharp answers to questions or objections that might arise. In addition, I invited a few reputable colleagues to testify, adding weight to the case and increasing the persuasiveness of the board of directors. I wanted to show them that the incident was not only a personal matter between David and me, but also a great danger to the entire organization. However, I also prepared myself for the worst-case scenario. David could use his power to deny, refute, or even use tricks to take revenge on me. Therefore, I sought the help of an experienced labor and business lawyer. The lawyer helped me understand my rights and entitlements better, as well as the legal options if the matter went to trial. As the settlement date approached, I felt the pressure mounting, but at the same time my determination grew stronger. I understood that this was not only a fight for my career, but also a way to protect fairness and transparency in the working environment, where many people may be oppressed and exploited. The night before the meeting, I could not sleep well. I remembered every moment of being betrayed by David, every feeling of being removed from projects, every time I was slandered and pressured. But I also told myself that I would not let things end like that. I needed to fight not only for myself but also for all those who could be victims of people like David. The day of the meeting came. I presented the entire plan and evidence to the board of directors and stakeholders. Everyone listened attentively, many of them unable to hide their surprise and anxiety. I looked straight into David's eyes as I spoke, feeling the confusion and anxiety gradually showing on his face. After I finished, the board of directors asked David to explain, but he could not deny the undeniable evidence. The evil and scheming actions were exposed, creating a huge shock throughout the entire company. As a result, David was suspended for further investigation, and I was invited to stay to help the company overcome the consequences and rebuild a healthier working environment. Not only that, I also received more support and trust from my colleagues and superiors. Although the process of revenge was not simple and inevitably difficult, I felt that I had done the right thing. Not only did I regain justice for myself, but I also contributed to preventing evil plots that could harm many others in the company. After I presented all the evidence of David's conspiracy to the board of directors, the atmosphere in the meeting room immediately changed. There was a heavy silence. Everyone was stunned, not knowing how to react to what they had just heard. The board of directors could not deny the sharp, clear evidence I presented. Every recording, every email, every text message pointed out exactly how David had colluded with outside partners to harm the company. Immediately after that, the board members asked David to explain, but he could only stammer and stammer. He no longer had his usual confidence and sharpness. All the plans that David had hidden for so long were exposed under the light of truth. It was a fatal blow that could not be recovered from. The board of directors quickly decided to suspend David for a more thorough investigation. They also emphasized the need to clarify responsibilities and find ways to remedy the damage David had caused. Meanwhile, I was invited to stay and play an important role in helping the company stabilize the situation. This event created a turning point not only for me but for the entire company. Previously, David was still a powerful figure, making many people shy or afraid to face him. But now his image was completely destroyed. Colleagues who once admired or feared me began to gradually look at me with different eyes, full of respect and trust. However, not everyone was happy. Some of David's supporters secretly tried to make things difficult for me. They whispered and hinted that I had used tricks to bring down my old boss. But I was mentally prepared to face such gossip. I knew that when you stand up against injustice, there will always be people who disagree. The important thing is to maintain your conscience and integrity. I also felt a profound change inside me. The process of struggling, preparing plans, and facing risks has trained me to have resilience and determination that I never thought I had before. I am no longer afraid or hesitant when facing difficulties. On the contrary, I find myself much more mature. My story quickly spread throughout the company. Many people began to share with each other stories of being imposed on or treated unfairly by David. That is when I realized I was not alone. There were many people in the company who had also suffered and needed a voice to condemn injustice. After careful consideration, the board of directors decided to reorganize the department that David had led. They put their trust in me to help rebuild a more transparent, fair, and professional working environment. This was the opportunity one had dreamed of. A chance to prove myself and change the company in a positive direction. However, the rebuilding process was not easy. I faced many new challenges, from resolving internal conflicts, rebuilding trust with employees, to managing previously delayed or failed projects. I had to learn to balance power and caution so as not to repeat the same mistakes that David had made. In the early days of taking on the new role, I also felt so much pressure that I almost collapsed. But it was the encouragement of loyal colleagues as well as the support of the board of directors that helped me overcome the difficulties. I realized that success comes not only from myself but also from the coordination, trust, and sharing of the whole team. In addition, the incident also caused David to face legal consequences. The evidence I provided was highly appreciated by the authorities and used during the investigation. David not only lost his position but also risked being handled according to the law. This is a costly lesson for anyone who thinks they can abuse power to do wrong with impunity. However, I didn't want the story to end with David being fired or punished. More importantly, I wanted to make lasting changes in the way the company operated. I proposed and pushed for the establishment of stronger internal controls, enhanced ethics training, and the creation of transparent feedback channels for employees. These steps not only increased employee satisfaction and morale, but also helped the company avoid future risks. I am proud to have contributed to creating a work environment where everyone is respected and heard. My story has also inspired many others to stand up against injustices in their workplaces. I have received many thanks and shares from colleagues and viewers on social media. They told me about similar experiences, oppression, deception, and the courage to not be silent anymore. That made me understand even more the power of speaking up and the importance of justice. Every individual can make a difference if they are brave and persistent enough. Although my story has entered its final stage with a certain success, I know that the fight for fairness and transparency is never easy and can never last forever. The working environment is always changing and new challenges can appear at any time. I still keep my guard up, ready to stand up for the right values. But I also learned to forgive and let go of personal grudges to focus on the bigger goal, which is to build a better working environment for everyone. Before ending, I want to leave you with a question. If you were me, what would you do if you discovered such a great betrayal at work? Would you stay silent to keep yourself safe, or would you stand up and fight regardless of the risks? And more importantly, what do you think of how I did it? Let me know what you think in the comments. This story is not just mine, but the story of all of us, people who live, work, and fight for justice in life. The story I just shared with you is not only a personal experience, but also a picture reflecting the complexities that occur in the modern working environment. Amidst ambitions, power, and competition for position, we often encounter situations that do not always have clear answers or absolute right or wrong. And that is why I really want to hear your thoughts, judgments, and experiences about this story. First of all, I want to ask a very basic but core question. In your opinion, in an office environment, when you discover that your boss or colleague has fraudulent behavior, plotting to harm the company like David, what will you do? Will you have the courage to stand up and expose the truth like I did? Or will you choose to stay silent or just quietly withdraw to protect yourself? There are many reasons why a person chooses to stay silent. Maybe it was because of fear of losing their job, fear of retaliation, or simply not believing that it would make any difference. But there are also people who believe that the truth must be revealed, regardless of the risks or consequences. My story clearly falls into the second category, but I would love to know what you think about this. Another point I would like to emphasize is the role of colleagues in these situations. In the story, there were people who chose to stay silent, and there were people who agreed with David's actions for their own benefit. Do you agree that in a healthy work environment, people need to support and protect each other when faced with injustice? Or do you think everyone should take care of themselves and not interfere in other people's business? I would also like to hear your comments on how I faced and handled the situation. Do you think that my collecting evidence and presenting it clearly to the board of directors was the best option? Or is there another way that you think would be more effective? There are times in life when behavior is not only about how to win, but also about how to maintain dignity and integrity. In addition, in this story, did you notice the changes in my mentality and thinking when facing difficulties? From a person who was afraid to speak up, I became much stronger and more decisive. Have you ever experienced similar changes when facing challenges? Please share with me about the moments when you changed deeply and what helped you overcome them. Not only stopping at me, the story is also a warning about building a healthy, transparent, and fair working environment. What do you think about the responsibility of the board of directors and managers in detecting and handling such wrongdoings? Should there be clearer policies and procedures to protect employees and the company from internal conspiracies? And here's the thing. After the truth is revealed, it's not easy to restore trust and rebuild an organization. Do you think my board and I did a good job of starting to restructure the department, increase transparency, and train employees? Or do you have other suggestions or experiences on how to not only handle the crisis but also prevent it from happening again? In addition, the story opens up another perspective on the power of speaking up and fighting for justice in society at large. Do you think that, whether in work or in life, we all have a responsibility to stand up for what's right even if it means getting hurt? Or do you think that sometimes silence is the wisest way to protect ourselves? I'd also like to know your views on forgiveness and letting go. In the story, I chose to forgive those who hurt me and focus on the bigger goal, Do you agree that forgiveness is not a sign of weakness, but a way to keep your mind at peace and move forward? Or do you think there are situations where forgiveness is not appropriate? In addition, I would like to hear similar stories that you have experienced or witnessed in the work environment. These could be cases of unfair bosses, betrayal by colleagues, or situations where you had to choose between keeping quiet or speaking up. Your stories are valuable and can help many others see the problem from different perspectives. Finally, I would like to encourage you to share your views on how society treats those who dare to stand up against injustice. Do you think that communities and organizations are providing enough conditions and support for such people? And what can we, as individuals, do to contribute to building a better living and working environment? None of these questions have an absolute right or wrong answer. They are open topics for us to reflect on, discuss, and learn from each other. I appreciate all opinions, whether they agree or disagree, because it is through diversity of thought that we can grow and progress. So please feel free to leave a comment below. Tell me about your views, feelings, or experiences. Together, we will create a Judgy Tales community that is not only a place to listen to dramatic stories, but also a place to exchange, judge, and draw valuable lessons for life. Thank you for watching and taking the time to share. Don't forget to like the video if you find this content useful. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other interesting stories, and turn on notifications to always be the first to see new videos. Judgy Tales is always here to tell you real stories, full of drama and emotion, stories that you can judge and learn from. See you in the next videos. And again, don't forget, in life, everyone has the right to speak up, the right to choose, and most importantly, the right to be respected.